Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 8 of the Danger Ranger podcast, and today it's a very special episode. We've got my younger brother, Ben, here. He's feeling a little sick, so please excuse any coughing or sneezing he's got to do. We'll edit out the worst parts of it here, but Ben is my younger brother. You are almost 21, right?
That's right.
You're 20, so
I'm 20.
you're about 5 years younger than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just got off a 2-year mission serving for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Mormon Church, and you spent 14 months of that in California because of COVID, and then you spent your last 10 months in Lyon, France. Lyon, Gap.
The south of France.
South of France.
A couple
So
different places.
he is the only other member of the family that has had extensive travel experience overseas, I guess, if you can call 10 months extensive.
Right.
It's a lot.
Because we have another brother that also served a mission, but he was in the States the whole time.
Yep, he served in the Pacific Northwest, so he didn't, and it was Spanish speaking, so he learned Spanish and he's fluent in Spanish, but he didn't leave the U.S. So Ben and I are the only ones that have left the U.S.
So mom and dad have never left.
No, they have. I think they've traveled, but they haven't lived like you and I have. I mean, granted I was living on military bases, but it's still like. You're in another country, you're interacting with people of a different culture. So
right.
We're just going to hear, it's going to be super casual, kind of just, we're just going to talk to each other, almost interview each other here, because we both have cool experiences. And I think that it'll be interesting for you guys to see, a member of my family. We would have liked to have Josh on, who is the middle brother. Ben is the youngest.
Hello.
Again, hello. But Josh is, I didn't record. We were gonna shoot it this last weekend, but we didn't have time, and he's back down in Southern Utah for school. So maybe in the future it might just be me and him, and then I think probably just me and him, and then we'll bring all three of us on. And I don't know if people want to see that, we can do that. So
that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So we have a lot to talk about, probably just
we could
in
probably
between each other because it's already been 2 years since we've seen each other.
Yeah.
And before that, he's been out of the house throughout the part of my life where I was, growing up really in high school. And so honestly, there's a lot we could talk about.
Yeah.
There's a lot to catch up on.
There's a lot to catch up on because I wasn't involved as much because I was, gone all the time for your later high school years and kind of your initial early adult decisions, life decisions, choosing to serve a mission and kind of your experience graduating high school and stuff.
Right.
So we could talk about that, man. It's just
we all lived in the basement, but for the most part of my high school, I was the only one in the basement here.
Yep, because Josh was either on his mission or in Southern Utah. So Ben had the run of the basement to himself, being a little basement dweller. But yeah, so we were filming it in the basement again, my room. We'll probably switch it up a little bit to make it a little bit more of a presentable podcasting situation in the future. Some life changes have happened, so this might be the new location for the podcast, but we're not going to talk about that today. Yeah, we're not going to do that. That's too soon. So let's see. I literally had a question on the tip of my tongue. Okay. So you just got back. You've been back for a week now, exactly. And how is that coming back from being overseas and being in a different culture and not seeing your family or really talking to them a whole lot and then coming back? How did you feel? How have you felt the first week back?
Wow, that was a good question. I was anticipating it a little bit as I was looking at the streets of France and the buildings and realizing how adjusted I got to France and to French culture. And I don't know, I'm not very observative, but it was how would I describe it? I was very, very accustomed to France, and so coming back to the United States and just being in the same place that I was 2 years prior was weird and pretty difficult. And I'm sure, we both have had that experience of traveling and being in different places and adjusting and stuff, and then coming home to familiar places. And I'm sure that's something we can relate on. You go to a new place and you become kind of a different person, and then you come back to old places and it's weird. So I guess that's what's been the weirdest thing, is that 2 years have passed but also it feels like no time has passed at all because I'm just back in the same place as I was 2 years ago. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I mean it definitely does, because I mean, like you've changed as a person, and your environment back here reflected the person you were 2 years ago. And
Right.
then you've come back and you've had all these life changing experiences. Been away from home for 2 years, been to another country, lived in another country for almost a year, and then you come back and your physical environment here hasn't changed a whole lot. Versus you've changed on the inside. So I imagine it's kind of like a hermit. Almost, I wouldn't say a hermit crab outgrowing its shell per se, because like it's still his home, but it's like
I'm going back in my shell as
yeah,
a different, and I don't fit it. Kind
yeah. That's cool. And it is hard, I guess. I mean, because I've getting out of the army, it's a similar, I wouldn't say identical transition, but it's a similar transition to the one you're going through. Whereas you've dedicated a portion of your life to
Right.
doing something, and now that that's over, you've got to figure out what's next. So
Yeah.
what's next for Ben? What's your, I mean, because we've been talking the past week, and I've been I showed you my journaling, my planning system. And so you're already on top of things. Like, you're not just trying to chill out. You're like already, like, the first day he got back, he's like, I gotta register for school, like I want to move out of the house. I'm like, hey, just calm down. Like, you're back and it's weird, just relax a little bit. Like, you can get to this. Like, you're allowed to have a couple days of just not doing much. But you still, you started getting on and setting your goals right away, which is, I think, probably one of the better things you could do to not fall into the slump of depression and like getting negatively affected by your newfound patterns and your new life that you're going to be adjusting to.
Actually, I have something to say about that, because in my last area where I was a missionary, there was a Tahitian woman who was a member of the church where I was serving, and she has had brothers who have served foreign missions and have gone on this experience and come back, and she saw them fall into like a depression and things like that. And so she had a conversation with me and was like telling me, like, are you ready to go back? Are you ready to return home? And she pointed out that if you don't have a why for when you get up in the morning, it's going to be hard to get out of bed if you don't have a purpose in your life. And so for 2 years, I've had a purpose that's been pretty simple and straightforward. And it's important that I take that purpose, keep what I want about it, and mold it to have a new modified purpose for the rest of my life, which is a lot longer than 2 years. So yeah, I think that's what's helped me a lot when I've come back, is just thinking a lot about, okay, what is my new why? Like, why do I get out of bed in the morning? And thinking about career and family decisions that I'm going to make has been helpful to keep me motivated.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a book that so before I got out of the army, I was in this program called the Honor Foundation, and it's basically a transition assistance program for specifically special operations across all the branches. Originally, it was only for SEALs, and then they kind of opened it up to any SOF member. And it was like I want to say a 13-week. We'd meet on Zoom once a week, and we'd get instructed for, I think it was like 3 or 4 hours on like life skills out of the army and how to effectively translate our experiences. And we got a ton of book recommendations, and one of them that I think that you should probably read is it's a classic, Simon Sinek's Find Your Why, I think it is. I'm butchering the name, but it's a really solid. I haven't read it. I own it. I haven't read it because I have a mountain of books that I haven't touched yet.
He's a reader. I wish I was a reader like him.
Yeah, you're not much of a reader, which is fine.
There's a bookshelf right there with a lot of books.
I'll give a room tour once it gets set up. But
yeah.
So I would recommend that book. I'll maybe on audiobook, because maybe that'll be a bit easier for you. But like I think it's called Finding Your Why, but it's like similar to it's a transition kind of style book for not just military. It wasn't written as a military transition book, but it's just generally, it's a general life transition assistance guide, or like kind of one of those motivational rah kind of books. But I've heard it was very good. I bought it. I haven't read it yet, but
that's interesting. So you had an experience while you were still in the army, preparing with mentors, counselors to help you in your transition home.
Mm-hmm. And I was lucky because the program that the Army does, like you get what you put into it, but it lacks in a lot of areas. It's kind of a one size fits all approach. It's so that the Army can like cross off the book of like, hey, like, oh, this person's ready for life outside the Army. Like the basic kind of stuff. But a lot of people, if you don't put energy into it, it's not going to do you a whole lot of good. And I knew that it was going to be kind of like subpar, which is why I went out and I applied for the Honor Foundation, which fantastic organization. I know I'll talk about that probably in a future video more in depth.
I would like to hear about that. So yeah. I had a similar program for missionaries who are returning home. For like 6 weeks, we had a online like course that we took to think about goals we want to set and values that we want to keep and apply in the next stage of our life. And there was one question while I was doing this program that someone asked me actually, or actually it was something that someone invited me to think about was what are the things about yourself that you want to keep the same when you come home? What are the things about yourself that you don't want to change? And I actually wanted to ask you, now that you've been home from the Army for a while, what is like maybe one of the biggest things, takeaway, a thing about yourself, something that changed in you while you were in the Army that you want to keep and maintain the rest of your life?
Okay, that's a good question. Good one. I've maybe talked about it in previous videos, but like just because I already had a strong work ethic prior to joining the Army, but then you go into the Army and you're expected to, you get taught something and then you're expected to be able to perform at a high level pretty much immediately after. And that's kind of uncommon in the civilian world. Like people are more willing to hold your hand along the way versus, the Army and specifically a special operations unit. It's like, hey, like you got to learn this and you got to learn it quick and you got to do it at a high level. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I would say that I have learned, because, in the Army, it's maybe not life and death every day, but it's like you're in charge of people, like you have a lot of responsibility and you're supposed to execute to a high standard without knowing a whole lot, knowing the whole picture. So translating that across, and I'm gonna do another video about like specifically what Ranger Regiment prepares you for, but outside the Army. But this is a good segue into that, where it's like, hey, like, I was doing crazy stuff, like, I mean, not crazy for a lot of people, but like jumping out of planes. Crazy for Ben maybe, but like driving across, Iraq in just an up armored car with one other dude, or like driving a Pander through Syria, like these places, and it's just like, or like planning movements in Ranger School, like stuff that's like kind of crazy and difficult. It's like being able to remember those experiences and using them as like, hey, like it's not as like what I'm trying to do now outside. It's like, oh, it's not as bad or as difficult or as dangerous as this, and I did that, so I know I can do it, so I know I can do this. Long way around of saying like just high confidence, I guess, basically, is in just remembering and thinking back to the experiences that I have had that were difficult, and then me overcoming them, and then using that in my life now. So,
I love that.
Cool. Well, what about you? What's the one thing that you wanted to keep the same? Like, it can just be like just one thing. You don't need, I'm sure you have a list, but
yeah, that's a good question. It might take me a second to think about it.
Good. You keep thinking about it. I'm gonna keep talking here. So,
okay.
I don't have them in right now, but I just started Smile Direct Club, which is, I'm not sponsored, by the way. I will include my promotional link down below if you guys feel like you want to try it out. But Smile Direct Club, because of my bottom tooth, which is after filming myself and watching myself over the past month or two, like, it is kind of distracting and obnoxious, and I think a couple people pointed out, it's like, I know, I'm aware of it, and I'm now actively working to fix it. It should be a 4-month easy treatment program, just clear aligners, and I've only been doing it for 2 days, so we'll see how it goes, and I'll keep you updated on that. But yeah, should be cool. Go check it out if you have teeth problems you want to fix, and you can learn more at the link down below. All right.
Well, I think generally, and there's a lot of aspects to this, but as a missionary for my church, I helped a lot of people like with their spirituality, but in doing so, I I learned the importance of having my own spirituality in my own life. And so I think one of the biggest things that I'm gonna try to take away into the rest of my life is having spirituality, having a relationship with God. That's probably honestly, that's probably the biggest thing that I would take away. There's a lot of other great things, but I think it all comes back to just kind of that. For me personally, um, I think like a subset of that is having a purpose-filled life with regular goal setting and planning, so that I can achieve, what I want to achieve in life and what I feel like God wants me to achieve in life. So, yeah, I think that is probably like the biggest thing that I want to take away for the rest of my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great. So you were in a French, obviously in France, and speaking French. How long?
Oui.
Yeah, oui. How long were you learning French before going over there? Because I think you did it in high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how long did it take for you to feel comfortable fluently speaking?
That's a great question. I don't know how it happened, honestly, but yeah, I did take some French classes in high school, and I didn't really like it. But when I, was assigned to serve a mission for my church in French, it became a lot more motivating for me to learn the language. And so I obviously started. I couldn't learn French as well as I could when I was in California, because I wasn't surrounded by French people. But I tried to study every day and set goals. It was hard. But when I got to France, because of that preparation, I found myself like the first couple of days understanding, I think, a half of what people were saying, which really surprised me. I was pretty shocked. Um, I, I, it was really cool to feel comfortable speaking a new language and understanding people. It was really fascinating. And I'd say that I'm pretty comfortable getting my point across and talking about almost anything that I want to, and making a point for something. After 9 months in France, um, and as missionaries, we talk to a lot of people. So that's, I think, because I met people who had been there for like 5 years maybe, that were from other countries, and they didn't speak that good French, which was really shocking. Yeah, but because we were out there and trying to, improve our French constantly as we talked to people, I guess it was more of a byproduct of our goals and efforts to help people, to serve them. But because of that, just natural interaction with people all the time, our French, me and a lot of the other missionaries, it develops quicker than probably usual, probably normal. So I felt pretty confident. Yeah.
So is that what you say your primary method of learning at that point was, just having conversations because you already had a base knowledge, and then you kind of were able to figure it out from there?
Yeah, I throughout my 9 months in France, or 10 months in France, I was always setting like monthly goals, for grammar, vocabulary, speaking, listening, and I had a grammar book that I studied, but like nothing replaces speaking with natives, and so that was the thing that I loved doing the most, was just speaking with people, and that's what helped the most.
That's awesome, because it's like I'm trying to learn Russian, but I just met actually a good friend of, he's going to be a good friend of mine. I can already tell, but he's grew up speaking Russian, and which is awesome, because it's like I'm trying to learn, and having a native speaker is what you just said, like super important, because it's like you can only learn so much from like Duolingo and reading books and watching TV shows in other languages, which all help, I'm sure. Like if you need to look up how to say a specific word, yeah, your dictionary is gonna be good for that, but like you need to learn it in conversationally with someone else, like, which all these other resources don't really do, because TV shows, movies are kind of scripted, so it's like maybe not as natural as people normally talk. And then Duolingo, it's like all right to get like a base knowledge of like the alphabet and the sounds, but like like the sentences they have you saying there, like you're probably never gonna say in real life. And then books, like that's probably like the hardest thing to learn from directly, is just words on paper. Right.
So I have a question. Did your choice to like learn Russian, does that have anything to do with your experience in the army?
Not really. I mean, I kind of liked Russian culture growing up before the army, and then I don't know what happened. It has not. I mean, people want to give Russia a bad rap right now because of what's going on in Ukraine. But there's a lot of really great literature, honestly, that's written in Russian and doesn't have maybe good translations. That's one of the reasons. And then, I like, honestly, what got me interested in Russia was the Kalashnikov. I like learning about the history of the Kalashnikov rifle.
I don't know what that is.
The AK-47.
Oh, okay.
Kalashnikov.
Nice.
And it's just, and also there's some YouTube channels that do like the 4chan green texts where they talk about like Russian folklore and like Yakutia, which is like the coldest province in Russia where people live, and like hearing about like their mythologies and their like kind of their traditions. It's like really just, I don't know, super interesting to me. It's there are hard people, like there are hardy people like living up in the up north like that. So it's it's an interesting culture for me to learn about, and I feel like learning Russian is a way to kind of involve myself in that. So yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, I mean Russian. I mean it's also like there's a lot of people in the world that speak Russian too. Like there's, I don't know the number on it, but like a lot of the Eastern European countries, a lot of them learn Russian or how like speak a dialect that's somewhat similar to Russian or like uses their alphabet. I want to say Ukrainian is close. I want to say that they use the same alphabet, but I'm not entirely sure on that. But yeah, it's a useful language. Like there's a lot of business. I mean, even in the business world, like maybe not so now because of all the embargoes and stuff, but I just feel like it's a potentially useful language too. Besides the my personal interests in the culture, we got a little notes here. We kind of just not gone off the note. We haven't really gone off the notes. We are running a little bit long. I don't know how long we've been running. But
I know.
We're getting
cool.
This is fun. Like
natural.
It's natural, which is nice because it's always just me talking. It's kind of hard to just talk as a person to the camera a lot of the times. So having a person to kind of have a normal conversation with is nice. Yeah. So we'll maybe start wrapping it up here. So what's your immediate plans here for your life? What are you doing? Like you don't need to. You don't need,
yeah.
You don't need to get too crazy, but like, where are you going to college? Where are you going to go to school? Like, what do you want to major in? Like, what are you majoring? I already know, but we'll just talk about it.
Yeah. My goals are to right now to get a job, to start making money. One of the things I took away from my experiences was the importance of being independent and self-reliant, and that's a big goal for me. I'm gonna kind of funny enough, I'm going to be going into a piano performance major. So talking about self-reliance, we'll see what happens.
It doesn't sound very lucrative.
Right, and that's what I'm worried about. But my goal is to right now I'm going into the piano performance program at Brigham Young University here in Utah. Can I say that?
Oh. Yeah, no, I mean people know we're in Utah.
Okay.
Yeah, so BYU.
Brigham Young University, doing the piano performance program, and eventually I want to become a teacher. I really enjoyed teaching on my mission. I got to teach, besides spirituality, I also got to teach English to people who are wanting to learn, and that was awesome. And so teaching is something that actually really interests me. I think that can do a lot of good, and I was really impacted by a lot of teachers. So that's kind of my goal right now, and to prepare myself to have a family. I'm pretty young, but I want to prepare to be a father and a husband for the coming years. So
that's good. You've already he secured his first date last night. We were watching Dune, and he asked me to pause it halfway through, and he's like, "Hold on, I gotta go call a girl." I'm like, "Get it, Ben, get it, seal the deal." And he sealed the deal, and then he came back and was like asking me he's like, "Oh, did I do it?" I was like, "You're good. Like, you got it. Like it's gonna be. You just gotta learn by doing." So
yeah. While he's here, I'm gonna take some dating advice.
I have a little bit. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I've got a little bit more life experience with dating than you. So
Right. So I'm looking forward to that.
I can help out.
Yeah. And what about you? What are your plans?
Hey, running the channel, running the copywriting business, Rockwell Designs. I'm gonna make an announcement about that.
Probably shout out. Go check out his vests. They're so cool.
Thank you. It'll link in bio or a link in description. But running the copywriting kind of side business, it's been writing for a surplus store right now, and those have been doing pretty cool. It's a little bit more my target market, because I am the target market, so it's fun to write emails, for that. We'll continue to grow that, and then see what happens here.
He's an entrepreneur.
They know. They know. If they've been watching, they know. But if you haven't been watching, you can go back and watch.
It's really cool. I admire that about him. He's a really driven person. Since he was like 12, he wanted to be in the army, and like so he focuses and he gets things done, and I really admire that.
Thank you. You do too.
Yeah.
You do too. Honestly.
Thank you.
So, any closing thoughts? Any closing words?
Nope. Just that I love you.
Oh, I love you too. This was fun. I definitely want to do this again, probably with Ben, and then we'll get Josh on eventually. He's a little hard to pin down because he's down south, but hopefully get him on, and then hopefully the three of us we get all together and film a little brother podcast. But,
yeah.
Thanks everyone for watching. Do you have social media that you want people to follow you on?
I don't really use social media.
Okay. Fair enough. Once he's like, a famous performance piano player, we'll edit this and we'll put that down below. Maybe we'll do a quick video of you playing, not on this podcast, but maybe we'll film you playing some piano at some point.
Okay.
He's pretty good, and he'll understate that, but he's really talented at piano. We all took piano growing up, but he was the only one that stuck with it. But he's very, very talented.
Thanks.
So no socials for you. I've got my business Instagram page, Rockwell Designs Actual. And my personal page, the Zach Red. I want to say I changed my handle because Zach Red Official was whack. But you can find those down in the link below. Links down below in the description. And yeah, that's it. So hope you all enjoy the rest of the week. Have a good one.